Hello, Dr. Frank, and welcome to Computer Science Chats. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I've prepared several questions to ask you. First, could you please introduce yourself and your educational background?
Sure. So my name is Jeremy Frank, and I work at NASA Ames Research Center in Sunnyvale, California. I have degrees in mathematics and computer science.
Thank you. So what is it that inspired you to pursue computing for a career?
I'd originally started out loving math and computers. I always wanted to do something like that, something technical. I got my undergraduate degree in math, which I really enjoyed. Um, and after I was finished with my math degree, I had to decide whether to go on and get another degree in math or computer science. I was able to get into a PhD program in computer science, and that sort of made the choice for me.
That's very interesting. How would you describe computer science or computing fields as a whole?
It's very hard to describe computing in an easy way because computing over my lifetime has become completely ubiquitous. So I was born in 1968, and as we all know, computers really got their start as part of NASA's Apollo program, and even before that, there was a lot of work on computing during World War II. But computing today doesn't look anything at all like it did back then. Computers have penetrated every single aspect of our lives. We carry them in our pockets. We have them in our ears. They fly in the skies above us. They drive around on the streets. So, computing has so many different manifestations and applications that it's very, very hard to put a single concise label on it.
Thank you. Could you describe some of the activities that you do through your work at NASA?
Sure. So I've been super fortunate in my NASA career to do a lot of different kinds of things with computers and computing. Some of the first things that I did was think about how to use computers to schedule astronomical observations with telescopes. If you're looking at a single thing all by yourself, then it's not a big deal. You take your telescope out and you see the moons of Jupiter or the rings of Saturn, and it's wonderful. But if you built a great big expensive observatory like James Webb, which recently launched, a lot of different people want a lot of different observations with it. And it turns out that planning and scheduling observations is very, very challenging. And so people use a lot of complex software to do that, not just for James Webb, but for all the other major observatories all over the world. So that was one of the first things that got my interest when I started working at NASA. For the last 15 or 20 years, I've been working a lot in human spaceflight. And as you might imagine, there are huge numbers of applications of computing in human spaceflight, both onboard the vehicles that we send into space and also in the Mission Control Center in order to help Mission Control do the job. And last but not least, we think about robotic spacecraft and what it is that you can and cannot do with many, many different robotic spacecraft. So now they have to think about not only a single spacecraft, guiding itself, but how do they cooperate, and how do they communicate, and how do they coordinate? So those are some of the kinds of things that I've been fortunate to do in my NASA career.
Yeah, so what do you like most and what do you find challenging about these activities?
Ooh, those aren't the same question. Some of the challenging things I don't like very much. It's very hard when you're dealing with these very, very big and expensive and complex missions. That can put a lot of pressure on you. Sometimes it's fun and it's very exciting, and sometimes it's a little nerve-wracking, especially when things don't work right. So those are sort of times when things are difficult. But again, in my career, I've been super fortunate to be able to do work that really exists at the intersection of mathematics and computing. So I do a lot of math even in my day-to-day job, which I really enjoy. I manage people, which is terrific when you get to work with really great, wonderful, challenging teams. I've been able to work with people across the United States. I work with people at Johnson Space Center in Texas and Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, the Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena. So there's a lot to like, but it's not all fun and games. Um,
That's very interesting. Do you have any advice for high school students who would like to get into your field?
Well, so the good news is that the field is very broad, and there are things that we do in computing that might be very surprising. So if you think to yourself, I'm an artist, right? I'm a very artistic person. How could I possibly get involved? Well, if I'm building computer systems that people are using, there's an entire subset of computer science that's all oriented towards how do I design human-computer interfaces. If I'm a person who's more interested in psychology, there's a subfield that's called human-computer interaction. How is it that you design computer systems that don't make people upset and frustrated and angry? How do you design them to be more effective and useful? So you don't need to be a person who's completely dedicated to doing math or computer science. There's plenty of opportunities for just about anybody who wants to get involved. And then, of course, if you're very interested in software development and programming, then there's also a great big variety of things that people can do. There's programming for large devices like laptops. There's programming for small devices. There's programming for very, very small embedded systems that can fit in the palm of your hand, all the way to great big machines. So it's a wide open field, and there's lots and lots of opportunity.
Thank you. And that also kind of leads into my next question. Where do you think computing is going to go in the future, and how can students prepare for it?
Yeah, this is a great question too. And there's a quote that various people have attributed to such luminaries as Mark Twain or Niels Bohr. The quote is, "It's very difficult to make predictions, especially about the future." We can look at what's happening now, and we can try and pretend that we know where the field is going. And I think it's going to be very difficult to really make accurate predictions about what's coming. I think we know computers are with us and they're here to stay. I think we know that they're going to be even more ubiquitous, that there will be more and more computers. One of the things that I often laugh about is what people refer to today as cloud computing. In the past, it was all cloud computing. You didn't have a single capable computer that you could use. You had a terminal that spoke to a large computer that was physically located somewhere else. And if that doesn't describe cloud computing, I don't know what does. So, I think the other thing that sometimes it's important to remember is that what goes around comes around. Something that looks like it's passé today may come back in the future.
Thank you very much for meeting with me and for being willing to do this interview.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. It's a great opportunity.
Thank you.